Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. DE gone done it. Ladies and gentlemen, the LATRON Incarnon is meta.
What's been going on? Tell me what's been going on.
What's good, folks? It's Nightmare Frame here with a new Warframe video coming at you with an Incarnon LATRON. Boy, this thing slaps. And before any cringe lord comes in, oh my god, they're gonna nerf it. Please, do yourself a favor. Get over yourselves. Enjoy the damn game. Stop living in fear of random things. And even if they do change it, guess who was fearful of not enjoying it while others had their fill? Yeah, that's right. Anyway, this weapon has lit a new spark. It's a single target weapon which clearly hasn't been touched in ages. Just like your mom. I'm sorry. And now with its Incarnon form has become an absolute unit, resembling an arcoplasma projectile when using its Incarnon form. It's a semi-AoE with collision ricochet. It's fun and powerful. If you want to know more on how to acquire Incarnon adapters, all that, check out the previous videos. I know I did say I was going for the Strun and bow, but I guess I went back on my words there. So, let's take a look at the evolutions. I used the adapter on the LATRON Prime. Of course, the first evolution is activating Incarnon. The evolution 2, we got Swift Punishment. This gives you bonus damage, and if you have sprint speed of 1.2 or higher, you get a smaller version of Gun CO. And yes, this will be additive to the mod as well. Now, Riddle Target gives you damage and increased multi-shot if enemies are affected by puncture procs from the weapon. And this stacks up to 4 times. It's actually really nice if you want guaranteed pellets, since the Incarnon form is AoE and the procs will spread. Evolution 3, this part is utility perks, and they're not a great impact on the weapon as much as you would want. You got negative zoom and the recoil. However, I went with extended volley. Getting 15 extra bullets is really nice to help build the Incarnon form or even using the weapon in its non-Incarnon state, so take whatever suits you. Evolution 4, this is where things change for the better. More damage and utility. From the right, we got the flat 24% crit chance and 0.2 times crit multiplier. Simple yet very useful. 100% headshot damage multiplier. This is a separate multiplier and is additive with the Deadhead Arcanes, so even more damage if we were to combine the two. But as I always say, it's better to spread out your multipliers. And finally, an actual game changer, Flensing Spikes. This allows you to strip enemy base armor by 20% when you proc puncture on them. Now, listen carefully. Puncture is only achieved on the regular fire mode and on the AoE explosion of the Incarnon, not the direct hits. If you look towards the right, you can see the direct hits from the Incarnon deal impact, while the radial attacks deal puncture and heat. To fully take advantage of this is to use it with either its regular mode or by using a grouping ability by hitting multiple targets, spreading the procs. For example, if you do group up enemies, you can shoot at their feet and the projectile ricochets off the floor, bouncing into the clump of enemies, stripping them. Now, this may sound impressive, and it is. You will mostly notice the armor strip on tougher enemy units, basically higher enemy levels, because this weapon destroys base steel path without even trying, even with its non-elemental build. I mean, you will notice the armor strip, but before you get a good look, the enemy is already dead, making both the Incarnon and normal mode of this weapon quite powerful. Here are things you should know about the LATRON. Since its normal version is hit scan, it cannot equip the projectile speed mod for its Incarnon mode, which is unfortunate, which is just fine because the projectile travels really fast. Also, the Incarnon mode shot will explode on impact, then ricochet all over the room. The explosion does scale with Prime Firestorm, but only gives it a 1.76 meter increase, and you will hardly notice this expansion. Also, the Augment Double Tap will snapshot the buff from normal mode into Incarnon, but does not work in the Incarnon mode. It could be a bug or disabled by DE because the weapon is already strong enough. Alright, let's take a look at the builds. I will show you 4 different builds, and these builds are split into 2, as some of them use different evolution perks. The first build, this is a casual build that is purely focused on damage and AoE raw damage. That is perfectly viable as a base steel path nuker. It's a corrosive build using Swift Punishment for Evolution 2 and Critical Parallel for Evolution 4. It uses primary deadhead as its base damage arcane, as this also provides you with a 30% headshot damage multiplier. You have your dual elemental forming corrosive and hammer shot for more crit damage. Also, if you don't have prime shred, use any other fire rate mod. Very clean and powerful. And now with the same evolutions, let's take a look at the classic viral hunter munitions. For base damage, I'm using Merciless this time around because it's not a raw damage build, but a hybrid with damage over time to kill stragglers and bleed enemies within the area. I swapped out the 2 elements for cold and toxin, and crit damage with hunter munitions. However, if you're using Nourish as your helmet ability, as it grants you a viral elemental damage multiplier on your weapon. So now you don't need to mod for viral, and you can replace the elemental mods with other multipliers. So I went with bladed rounds for more crit damage and gun CO. This loadout provides me with even more damage and multipliers while outsourcing my elemental damage from an ability. And now onto the last 2 builds, which use different evolutions. On Evo 2, I'm using Riddle Target for the increase in multi-shot when you proc Puncture. More pellets also increases our damage and damage distribution. And Evo 4, I have Flensing Spikes. This strips armor on enemies if they're affected with puncture procs. Of course, the first thing I brought out when using this loadout was Mag. She easily groups up enemies and doesn't need to use her 4th ability to strip armor. And this projectile gets stuck in the bubble for pretty and nasty damage scaling. However, when I was chatting with Asian Invasions, he did bring up Ensnare grouping, which kind of simulates Mag but not using Mag. So if you group up enemies and shoot into their feet, the projectile will bounce within the clump and armor stripping the group, thus destroying them. But then I did say earlier, enemies in Bait Steel Path are way too fragile for this strat and you'll end up one-shotting them. So let's take a look at the 3rd build. This build has no elements and relies on the AoE grouping method from either Mag or Ensnare, and plus the AoE is heat, so it helps strip armor even more. I have prime fast hands to help to go into Incarnon mode faster, because believe it or not, reload speed affects Incarnon transformation speed. Bladed rounds and hammer shot for the critical damage increase, and hammer shot also increases the status chance to help proc more puncture. Remember, you're going to be shooting into their feet when they're grouped up, so the projectile gets stuck in the clump. And finally, the non-Incarnon mode. Pretty insane if you were to use this in Disruption because it's literally free money. This build is focused on single target on beefier units. I'm using the primary dexterity for my base damage multiplier, as killing with melee will boost my primary's base damage, so I don't lose out in ammo in higher tier content. And here we have the Latron's augment called Double Tap. This is a final damage multiplier that stacks multiplicatively with base and faction damage, and each consecutive shot will build up the stacks to a max of 400%. The buff resets if you miss. This is why it's best paired with Zata's Whisper in a Disruption build. You're basically creating a headshot marker the size of your mom. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist again. It just comes naturally, like your mom. God damn it. For my primer, I will use the Hystrix modded for viral and heat, using the Cold Quill with the secondary Cucumber Arcane. Yes, that's how you pronounce it. This is very useful for proccing additional status effects, and is better used in a single target rapid fire weapon, like the Hystrix. And the Latron build is like so, the usual mods but with double tap and galvanized aptitude. This is further boosted with the multiple status effects from Hystrix and Zata's Whisper. This build does have the potential to scale into level cap, and I might do one with this loadout. One day. Anyway, folks, that has been it from this Latron video. I do hope you enjoyed it and learned something from it. And if you did, please feel free to leave a like, share, and subscribe for more Warframe content, streams, and so much more. Do it for the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, peace.